Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ronin's Den. I'm Steve. As always, I'm joined with my co-host, Eric. Eric, today we're going to have a little bit of a conversation about a new TTRPG that dropped last Friday. You can pick up the PDF for it currently, and the books will soon follow by the end of August, early September. And that is Draw Steel by MCDM Productions, aka the company that started with Matt Colville. Yeah, let's talk about it a little bit.
Sounds good because I've been eagerly awaiting your feedback on this since we first talked about it. What was it, last year, year before?
It was 2 years ago we talked about it. This game was backer kitted in late 2023, and it is now realized and here. Draw Steel is a cinematic, tactical, fantasy game. What that means is it is a game that is trying to emulate like action adventure movies. Things like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Star Wars, where you have that kind of like rising tension and these cinematic battles and bringing it all together with political intrigue. The first thing I want to bring up about Draw Steel is it is not a competitor to D&D. It has never claimed to be a competitor. It does not want to be a competitor. It is a game that Matt, Jason, Jordy, Willie, all the people at MCDM wished D&D was doing, and it wasn't. So instead of trying to fix D&D to do what they wanted it to do, they created this, and this is their passion project. And quite honestly, I think this game probably had more playtesting than any other TTRPG ever has because MCDM has playtesters on the staff. They pay their playtesters. This game has been developed. It has changed dynamically from when it first was released. And it is just, in my opinion, looking at it, not playing it yet, looks like a great, great game. I also want to say that it tells you exactly what it is. There is a page in the book that says you can fight monsters in a dungeon, but the game is not about dungeons or dragons. Lots of games focus on that gameplay and can do it really well. Try Shadow Dark. If you want to play wilderness exploration, play Forbidden Lands. The book literally tells you, hey, we don't do these things. If you want this experience, go play this game. This is what we do. And I admire that in a TTRPG. It does not want to be the kitchen sink. It does not want to be the catch-all. If you are not interested in what it is selling, it tells you what game to go play instead. And I think that is refreshing in a TTRPG.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so tired of the argument of what each game is and isn't. You know, oh, well, this one's designed to do horror stories. No, it can do absolutely everything. Oh, tiring. So to have a company that's like, nah, look, this is what we designed our game to do. This is how you're going to have the best experience with it. Love it.
Oh, now getting back to Draw Steel, the thing that it is trying to do is it is trying to make that what I said, tactical, cinematic, heroic fantasy. It does not, when you start at level 1, you're not just a farmer. You're not just this. You are an established adventurer. You are an established hero. This game assumes that you have already done some pretty cool shit. So it gets rid of that D&D level 1 problem where it's like, well, if I was a farmer a week ago and now I'm level 1, how could I have killed a dragon or done all that? This game assumes that you've done something pretty cool. So I give it credit for that too. The game mechanic is a very simple, straightforward mechanic. You roll 2d10s, you add your modifier, and you see what tier of success you have. 11 or lower is tier 1. 12 to 16 is tier 2. 17 or above is tier 3. The thing in combat that Draw Steel does that I think is fascinating is you never actually miss. You never have a round where you don't do something. So, for instance, say you roll 2 1s plus a 1 modifier, you get a 3. You're still doing a little bit of damage. You're still moving the needle, just not a lot. So, combat in this game is, do you move the needle quicker than the enemies, or do the enemies move the needle quicker than you? Which, for someone who doesn't like playing a D&D game where I cast a spell, nothing happens, and then I wait 20 minutes for my turn to come back around, I really like this.
So, question, is there a failure state for in the game, or is it all degrees of success?
So everything in combat is a degree of success.
Okay.
So if you're using a spell or an attack, however, there are skill checks that you can make, but they fall into several categories. So unlike D&D, where say I want to pick a lock, in D&D, you pick a lock, you fail, you can try again, or somebody else can try again. In Draw Steel, there's levels of the failure and success. So if you roll and you fail, failure means someone saw you, or you opened the door, but the people behind the door heard you. There's not a true, I failed, nothing happens.
Okay.
There's always something moving the story. It even says in the book, you fail forward. For what little you do fail. But in that combat, when you're fighting enemies, you always are doing some kind of damage, which is kind of unique. I think it's more fun, but we'll see when I actually get it to the table. Character creation, that is the part that I think is going to be the most fun about this game. So let's talk about the ancestries, which are the races. You pick an ancestry. In Dungeons and Dragons, if you pick a dwarf, you get ability score adjustments, you get a set number of things that every dwarf has, and that's it. In this game, if you pick the dwarf, you don't have a dwarf that everybody else has. You pick the dwarf, and you get one ability that is the signature ability that all dwarves have. Then you get 3 racial points or ancestry points to buy other racial abilities. Right? So, for instance, the dwarf signature ability is runic carving.
What page is that?
But I can choose... What?
What page are you on?
31.
Perfect.
But with those 3 points, I could pick Great Fortitude and Grounded. Or I could pick Spark Off Your Skin and Stand Tough. You get a calculated decision on who your dwarf is and what that looks like. So my dwarf could be completely different from yours, and that's okay. And it also keeps the idea that dwarves are kind of short and sturdy, without that having a ability score tied into it, which is kind of what I think Dungeons and Dragons players have been wanting. And this is kind of the happy medium, in my opinion. But what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, no, I like it. I when we're talking about the ability scores and the abilities they get, it kind of reminds me of something we were talking about right around when Spelljammer was released, and there was all that controversy. And this was something we talked about as sort of kind of as a good medium way. And I'm glad to see a company actually go out and do it. I was able to read through some of the different heritages, species in the books, and what I like is no 2 people have to have the same dwarf, and you can or elf or devil or what is it, Dragon Knight is the other one.
Yeah, because you can't say Dragonborn because that's
No.
copyrighted by Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah. And if I remember right, these guys also have wings, whereas the Wizards of the Coast ones do not. But you can,
They can have wings.
so yeah, you can tailor your your species abilities to your class a lot better than you can in D&D. I like it. More the customization, the better, in my opinion.
Absolutely. So that is your first instance. You pick your species, or your ancestry is what they call it in this game. You customize your ancestry, and then you go into your background, which you pick your culture and your career. Your culture is how you were raised and how you grew up. It gives you a list of different things that you can choose from and a list of potential benefits for those as well. Then you pick a career, which is what did you do before you started adventuring? And the thing that this book does, this game does, when you pick your career, beside it is a D6 table called the inciting incident. What is the reason that you left being a blacksmith, a gladiator, an artisan? What is the reason you gave up your cushy job to go fight monsters? You can make up your own, or you can roll that D6. So the character that I made, which was a devil null, I was a gladiator. I rolled my D6. I got 1. It was called Betrayed. My gladiator devil was told that if he let someone else win a fight, they would take care of him for life. After the match, they tried to kill him and left him for dead. And now my devil realized I have to do better and went on a life of adventuring with hopes to find the people who betrayed him. It gives you a reason. This game bakes that into it and gives it the term that's used in media and everything, the inciting incident. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, especially for people who maybe aren't the greatest at writing backstories. This gives them a good jump off point to just have the system automate a little bit of that for them. And like you said, if you know what you want to do, you can just make your own inciting incident. But for new players, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. Then after you pick your culture and your career, you fill all that stuff in. Then you get to pick the class. And your class is kind of where you're the bread and butter of this is, because you get a lot of options with your classes. And I'm just going to go through the classes real quick. We're not going to go in depth in them, but I'm just going to say kind of briefly what they are and kind of equate them to the D&D equivalent. The censor is essentially a paladin.
Okay.
You focus one enemy, you beat it to death, then you move on to the next. With classes, each class has something called a heroic resource. I believe the censors is their wrath. What your heroic resource is it's a amount of points that you can spend on abilities and your techniques and things like that. But unlike D&D, where you get a set number of resources that you deplete, Draw Steel, you start with none of those resources, and as the battle goes on, you gain more of them to use. So it gives that thematic of like where you're starting out, you're not doing a lot, kind of like that anime thing, where the guy starts out just throwing some punches and then he builds up his chakra or his ki, and suddenly he's using these more powerful attacks as the fight goes on. That's the theme they're going for. So those resources of yours start low, then ramp up to give you those stronger attacks later on. It's very themed in that way, which also is very thematic and cinematic and heroic, right?
Yeah, and
So
that's nice too, because it. Now you've read the system a lot more closely than I have. I've just skimmed through, but it seems like something like that would also prevent the players from just one-shotting the BBEG before the monologue's been completed. Is that pretty accurate to think so far based on your current reading?
I don't think, from what I've seen so far, it seems like it would be very hard to just one-shot a BBEG because most of your strong abilities cost you 5 to 7 of your heroic resource. And I believe that at the start, you roll a d3, and that's how much you get to start. And then there are other things that happen. Like, I believe one of them is however many enemies are within a certain proximity, you gain that many. Like, every class has their own unique way to gain more, but at the start of your turn, you always roll a d3. So you're gaining them, but it's hard to like use those powerful abilities out the gate. You have to build up to them. So yeah, the BBEG probably can get a monologue in before the players start killing them.
Nice.
So yeah, the Censor is kind of your paladin. The Conduit is your cleric. They have healing abilities. They're kind of a support class. Their whole thing is to manipulate the battlefield, buff and debuff enemies, or the heroes, and heal. Elementalist, it's your wizard. It's pretty straightforward. You use elemental magic and you blast things with fire or ice. Fury is kind of your barbarian. It's kind of a mix between a fighter and a barbarian. I believe that their heroic resource used to be called Rage, but now it's called Ferocity. The Null is the class that I like the most so far. It's kind of a psionic monk. So you do a lot of hits on enemies, and it focuses on moving people around the battlefield. So like hitting someone and pushing them away, hitting someone and pulling them in, punching someone and switching spots with them. It's very combat or like fisticuff monk style, but moving people around the battlefield. The Shadow, it's your rogue. The Tactician is the one that I think a lot of people are going to like. It is not your typical fighter. It is kind of like a battlefield commander. Some of the abilities of the Tactician allow other people to use their abilities. They allow other people to do things. It's you are a person who is tactically minded and you can see everything and manipulate the pieces on the chessboard properly. And then you have the Talent, which is your psionics. If you remember our video about the Talent for 5e, this is just that for Draw Steel.
Nice.
And then the Troubadour is your bard. However, the Troubadour has some interesting abilities that let you just rewrite reality. Like, one of the abilities of the Troubadour is just like, oh, this NPC that's a friend of ours is here. He wasn't here originally, but he's here now. It's like, it's almost like a metagaming class where it's like, I'm writing the story and I'm just going to retcon this and this guy's going to be here or this is going to happen. Flavor-wise, it's ridiculous, but it's so fun to like look at those abilities to be like, oh, this NPC just showed up. We needed help. So, hey, I'm going to use this and boom, we're good. Yeah, I like the themes of all the classes. I think what they've done is they've taken the elements of D&D and they've stripped it away a little bit and added their own flavor and flair. And I really, really enjoy that.
Yeah, I'm enjoying what I'm reading so far. I want to get to play it. I'm going to be making a character sometime this weekend to just see how the mechanic feels while building a character. It doesn't look like it's overly complicated. It's pretty easy, steps you through step 1 through done. So looking forward to getting my hands on that part of it.
I will say the one thing I do really like about this book is Matt Colville talks in a way that is understandable, and he writes like people talk. Reading this book, looking through these rules, It doesn't look like I'm reading rules. It feels like someone is telling me the rules. And I know that sounds like a weird, like hard to understand if you don't know what I'm saying. But like I've read rule books where I'm like, what the heck? What are they trying to tell me? And this feels like I'm sitting down with Uncle Matt, and Uncle Matt's like, listen, you just do this, then you do this, and here, this is an option you can do. It feels like it's personal. And I don't know how to explain it any better than that.
No, no, that makes sense because when I'm reading rules for some of the more crunchy older games that I like, they read like radio instructions. It's almost like you got a piece of furniture you're trying to put together without a diagram, and it's trying to talk you through it with just take slot A into tab B, use screw C with multi-tool Y. When I was reading this book, it was more spoken language. So like I said, it was stepping you through each process. Kind of like if you read the confusing rule, then you go to Google to find the answer and you read somebody's post about it. This book skips that whole Google step of needing to figure things out, and they just tell it to you plainly.
Yeah. Well, and then after you've picked your class, you pick what is called your kit. So Draw Steel decided we don't want to deal with the minutia of what weapons do you have access to? What armors do you have access to? All that is irrelevant. Let's just make kits. So each class, when you get to the point in your character creation, you pick a kit. So let's use my Devil Null, right? I could have decided that he was a dual wielding Null, meaning that he had two weapons that he was wielding. You get a signature ability, you get some bonuses, and you get told what equipment you have. I went with Martial Artist because he was a gladiator who did fisticuffs in a fighting arena. And he got a special ability. This is another way to make your character feel different. So I'm playing a Devil Null Martial Artist. You could be playing a Devil Null Dual Wielder. And every step of the way, we could be completely different. My Devil could have horned or the glowing eyes and a barbed tail. Yours could have a prehensile tail and hoofed feet. I could pick all these null abilities and you pick all these null abilities. And now I pick this kit, you pick this kit. They're completely different, even though they're exactly the same thing. They've done a really good job of making your character extremely customizable without giving you a ton of options. What they did with it is actually kind of mind-boggling to me because you don't have a ton of options. You can't multi-class. You can't like play outside of the character type that you're going for, but yet you still have enough options that you feel like you're making meaningful decisions without it hurting you. I don't know how to put it better than that.
It works for me.
Also, another thing I like, if you go to page 225, they give you charts at the end of the kit, like at the end of sections, like this kit section. It gives you a chart of every kit, what you get, and all the stats that go along with it. So you don't have to go, you just go to this page, you're like, oh, that looks pretty cool. Oh, I like that. Yeah, let's do this.
Very cool. So
then the next thing you go ahead.
No, go on.
I was going to say, then after you pick your kit, you pick your perks. So some of your background stuff could give you perks. Your class will occasionally give you perks. The best way to describe perks is feats from 5th edition. They are just little mechanical bonuses that you get to choose from. It doesn't get much harder than that. But then the last thing you get to pick in the character creation, and this is where I think it really, this is optional, But if you're playing with me, it's not. You're picking a complication. So a complication gives you a benefit and a detriment. So the first one on here, let's just go to anti-hero. The benefit, you have 3 anti-hero tokens. Whenever you use an ability or an other effect that costs you heroic resource, you can spend 1 anti-hero token in place of 1 heroic resource. Whenever you have fewer than 3 anti-hero tokens and you would earn a hero token for your party, through your deeds, you instead gain 1 anti-hero token. The drawback, while you have fewer than 3 anti-hero tokens, you exude a villainous aspect. You and each ally within 5 squares of you take a bane on any test made to interact with other creatures. Essentially, you were an anti-hero. You're not a good guy, but you're doing good. If you use this benefit that you got, people start to realize this guy's not that good.
I like it.
Also, we should talk about edges and banes in this game.
Okay.
Instead of getting advantage or disadvantage or determining all these random little modifiers, if you have a bonus on something, it's called an edge. It gives you a +2 to your roll. If you have a bane, it's a -2 to your roll. If you have the high ground, you have edge. If you're flanking, you have edge. If you have the low ground and you're trying to hit someone, you have a bane. If you're being flanked, you have a bane. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. That's about it. But yeah, these complications give you a benefit and a negative, and they can really round out your character. They make your character feel like they've lived a life. They are more than just, I put this character together and we're playing. Just by going through this character creation, you can create an entire background and backstory for a character just based on the decisions that you've made. I really enjoy the character creation. I really enjoy everything I've read about this game. And it very much feels like a group of people said, you know what? We just want to make a game that is fun to play and we want to hit it out of the park. And I think they did.
So before we wrap this up, because we've gone pretty in depth into the character creation without going really in depth, we talked about what draw steel is and isn't, but there was some language that popped up that might have some questions come from it, and that's how the game is played. There were references to squares. So is this game set up to be played either or, theater of the mind or tabletop, or is this game necessitating a tabletop?
This game requires you to have a grid and tokens, because a lot of your abilities are moving people around. It is very clear you move squares. You don't move feet. You push things and pull things a number of squares, not a number of feet. I think you could play it theater of the mind, but you would not be playing it effectively. And I could see a lot of your abilities getting a lot of people getting frustrated because of the lack of understanding of what their abilities actually would do. Also, in Draw Steel, shoving enemies into each other deals damage to them. So being able to see that represented on a map and on a battle grid is kind of important. So the game does believe that you're going to play either on a VTT, on a mat on the table, something of that nature. Also, it's not out yet. I don't know if it ever will, but it is being built currently. MCDM is creating their own virtual tabletop for this. Last I heard, it's going to be one flat rate. You buy it, you own it forever.
Oh, nice.
And it is going to have everything built into it that you can just turn it on and play. You can put maps on it. You can have characters in it. It should be one of the best VTTs. Like, people that are beta testing it right now say that it's far superior than any of the other VTTs out there. So I'm anxiously awaiting that, but they are very much trying to make this as plug and play as possible. They just haven't got there yet because it just released. But the reception for this whole system has been very positive.
Yeah, I've the very little I've read, it has definitely piqued my interest.
I will say that if you are the type of player who doesn't want to play on a grid, this game is pretty crunchy. It's a little more crunchy than 5e in some of the minute details of it. I could see it being a turnoff to a certain type of player. But the thing is, it tells you point blank, this game isn't for everyone. This is what we do. This is what it's used for. If this isn't what you're looking for, here's a list of games to go try. So, yeah.
I like it. We'll have to check it out. Hope maybe do a one shot for it on the channel, one of our Winries one shots, and see how it plays.
I am looking forward to it. I want to get this to the table so bad. I like I said, for anybody who's still watching, MCDM is the model of what a TTRPG company should be. I've done nothing but praise them as a company since they've come out. I've talked to people who have done writing for them. They pay more than any other TTRPG company by a lot. Paizo, Wizards of the Coast pay a couple cents per word. MCDM pays 25 cents per word. I don't know what that means because I'm not a writer, but from the writers that I've talked to, that is substantial. It is a ton of money per word. They have told artists that I've spoken to, when the artists submitted their art to them and they said, okay, how much do you want for this? The artist told them an amount and MCDM said, no, we're not paying you that little. This is what we're going to pay you. They don't pay just for the completed art. They pay per draft. They pay their employees extremely well. They have full health benefits for all of their employees that are full-time employees. Matt Colville in a live stream said, I would rather go broke and lose my company than screw over the people that are making me money. They are every bit what a TTRPG company should be doing, and they are thriving while doing it. So if there is a company that deserves your money, it's MCDM.
Awesome. Well, let's take this out, and we'll pick up again in a week with... we're going back to Capiterra next week, right? That's the plan?
Yes, finally. Been so much crap going on in our lives.
Right? So that has been Ronin's Den. We will catch up with everybody again next week as we dive back into Capiterra. And we're going to do some more deep dives into Draw Steel and set up a one-shot for it here in the coming weeks. So my name's Eric. As always, I'm here with my co-host Steve, and we will catch you again next time.